If you would, grab a songbook and turn to number 659. Number 659. 659. We'll sing the first, second, and fourth verses. I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and His glory, of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story because I know 'tis true. It satisfies my longings as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story, more wonderful than seems, than all the golden fancies of all my golden dreams. I love to tell the story. It did so much for me, and that is just the reason I tell it now to thee. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story for those who know it best, seem hungering and thirsting to hear it like the rest. And when in scenes of glory I sing a new song, 'twill be the old story that I have loved so long. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love.
Good evening. Good to have everyone here today. Lovely sunshiny day, so very thankful to many blessings from God. Was found, this little ring is up here at the front part of the auditorium. It looks like it's a kind of an added ring for a wedding ring. Is it yours? It doesn't quite fit me. It just goes that far on my knuckle. But so if it's yours, I have it. You look at it. It's got little diamond things on it and everything. So let me know. So if you've lost it, we'll see if we can't find it. It was over here. It wasn't so much over here. So, all right. Welcome everyone. Glad to have you here. Our Wednesday evening services. Our vacation Bible school is coming up very quickly as the summer approaches, and we want everyone's input. And this is whether you're going to be directly, indirectly, or how you may be involved with it. But we have a survey that needs to be filled out You can go and email. It's been emailed as well as left on the back table. You can fill it out online, return a paper copy there by the church office, however best for you. But everyone, please, if you would, fill out that survey about Vacation Bible School. It's going to help us as we plan this event to make it effective as helpful as possible. And then it says, thank you. I know you'll be able to do that. This coming night, Friday night, is game night. Begin at 6:30 here at the building. Bring finger foods and games and join the fellowship. It'll be lots of fun. We're beginning tonight the college age class and young adult class, and it will be down the hallway right there in a classroom. So be there. And also this coming Saturday at 5 o'clock, the Locketts are hosting for that age group as well at their house, a barbecue cookout type thing. So that'll be a lot of fun. Is that for people who graduated college or actually young adults? Yeah, so yeah, even if you graduated college 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, no, it's recent. So, but it'll be good. We have a number of those young people that age that will benefit from it. On our prayer list, Mickey Benton, and this is a friend of Lynn. She's doing well after heart surgery. Thankful for that. Continue praying for her. Mae Vaughn has received some injections for back pain and says she's doing much, much better. So pray that it'll continue to be effective. And also, Donna Crater is at home on antibiotics. Says for pneumonia. Pray it clears up. She's scheduled for a cancer treatment later this month and desperately needs that to be cleared up so she can do that. Let's go to our Father in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for your goodness and your love, knowing you know us and you see our needs and our hurts and our concerns. And Father, you yearn and long for us to turn to you and seek your help and your comfort and your strength. Pray, Father, that we, as we turn to you, encourage others as we point them to you, that you will be glorified in all things and all ways. We're thankful that we can come together this evening and study your word. And help us as we can be encouraged from your word to be a determined people to serve you and live for you. Be with all those teachers who prepared lessons and be with the students, us as students as well. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Dismissed for classes.
Good evening. If you did not get one of the papers, we made a few more copies. If you would just raise your hand, Lynn can get those to you. Or, I think Lynn will get those to you. And it really is just a questionnaire. It's nothing that is like a test or anything like that. I just wanted to get some feedback from the class. It is a new quarter, and I'm the old teacher. So tonight is chapter 10 through 13 of Nehemiah. So buckle up, because we're moving. Okay. We are going to be, let me turn this on. We're going to be in chapter 10 of Nehemiah, looking at that very briefly. Chapters 11 and 12 are a lot of names, and so I'm going to touch on what's going on there. And chapter 13 is really where we want to drive our focus this evening. But chapter 10, we're going to look at, we've been looking at these stones. And, let's see, okay. These stones. There we go. Stone of confirmation is chapter 10. Stone of participation is chapter 11. Stone of celebration is chapter 12. And stone of confrontation is chapter 13. Chapter 10, we're going to look at the spirit of confirmation. Okay. They have confessed their sins in Nehemiah chapter 9. And as they're going through that, excuse me, they're going through that, they have rejuvenated their love or their zeal towards God the Father, it seems. And it's going to tell us here in the first few verses, and I'm not going to read all these names, I'm just going to read verse number 1, really. Now those who placed their seal on the document were Nehemiah the governor, the son of Hilkiah, and Zedekiah, Sariah, Azariah, Jeremiah. And it's just going to continue down a very long list of names there of those who are sealing this covenant. And their zeal, again, is renewed. they're going to have this renewed life, this renewed mind is what they're aiming for. This is their confirmation. This is what we're agreeing to. We want to do these things that we have been so far neglecting for so many years. Now, we are aiming to be as faithful to God as we possibly can be, just as those in Nehemiah's day are. How does God deal with man? How would, I don't know if there's a better way to phrase that, I know, but it's a blank relationship. What do we call that? God deals with us in a blank relationship. It starts with a C. A covenant relationship. He deals with us in a covenant relationship. Now, that covenant relationship, he desires it to be a free will relationship there. Man gets the ability to agree to that covenant, and that obligates us to do what is asked of us. But us agreeing to that covenant also is allowing us to hold God accountable to his end of the deal. But we are also held accountable to our part of the covenant. He's dealing with us. He's dealing right here in this covenant. The people are signing it, and they are on their way to better days, it seems. Salvation has always been a covenant. We're going to see the covenant document here, verses 1 through 27. We're going to see the covenant oath, verses 28 and 29. And then in verse number 30 through 39, we're going to see the covenant stipulations. Now, we really want to be mindful here, and we're probably going to go ahead and read verses 30 through 39 just to get... Actually, we're not going to read that. I've got too much to cover. Here's what's going on in 30 through 39. They're saying, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're promising to do. Here's what we're confirming to do. And then in chapter 13, what we're going to get to this evening is that they did complete opposite of that. They think they're back on the right track, and they are for a short time, and we're going to see that they quickly go away from those things. We want to look at 7 aspects of the covenant here real quick. In verse number 31, there's going to be 3 things that they say they are not going to do. Here's what we're not going to do, and here's what we're agreeing to not do. We're not going to enter into marriages with foreign women or men. We're not going to buy on the Sabbath from foreigners. And we're not going to forego the 7 years produce or the year of release. Those are the things we're not going to do, is what they're saying in their covenant, covenant or their confirmation here. They also say they are going to do 4 things. They are going to do these 4 things. Verse number 32. They're going to institute a tax temple. They're going to supply wood for the sacrifice. They're going to give God his portion first. That's something they hadn't done in a long time. Verse number 35 through 38. They're going to give them their sons, the firstborn of their sons, their animals, the first of their animals, the first of their crops. God is going to take that first portion first. And he needs to have been doing, or he should have been doing that. They should have been doing that towards God the entire time. We know that they have had some issues in the past. Number 4, they're going to take care of the house of God and the priests of God. Okay, make a little bit of application here. How we take care of our ministers is important. How we take care of our workers for the Lord is important. And I don't... let me preface this, right? This congregation, this eldership, do a wonderful job of taking care of this preacher. And I think I can speak for the other 2 that are being supported by this congregation. They take care of us very well. But across the board, there are congregations that do not take care of their preachers. They do not take care of their ministers. They don't. If you don't pay a preacher looking forward to retirement, there is something that they're working their entire life for. If you think about someone like Bill, right? He worked at Lockheed Martin for his entire career. If he worked that entire career and had nothing laid aside, that would not be a good thing on his end, would it? Preachers, we're people too, and we have emergencies, and we have bills, and we have surprises come up. But again, across the board, that may not be the case that congregations are taking care of their preachers the way they should. Their confirmation here is saying, we're going to take care of the priest of God because they are dedicating their life towards that. Okay, that's chapter 10. Any questions? All right, on to chapter 11. Chapter 11 and 12, they really go together. That we're going to look at the 2 stones here. We're going to look at at the stone of participation here and the stone of celebration. Remember back in chapter 7 how the walls were rebuilt, but there were not a multitude of people within the city? Chapter 11 is focusing, it seems to be, on, okay, we need to get people back in to the city walls. We need to get them back in here. This is, it's going back to, let's get Jerusalem back to where it used to be. Let's get it back to the idea of them. There were people within the walls. They were trading. They were living their lives. They were serving God. Nehemiah, when he came onto the scene, he had to deal with some pressing issues, didn't he? What was the big one when he came onto the scene? Why did he want to come to Jerusalem in the first place? To rebuild the walls. That was his main focus. Were there other problems going on that he didn't see at the time? Yes. Let's make this application. Most leaders can handle one major problem at a time. Now, it's not to say they can't handle multiple, but it is very difficult to handle multiple major problems at a time. You can handle a big one and then some small ones, but handling more than one major problem is hard. Be patient with your leaders. Be patient with our elders here. Be patient with your co-workers and your bosses in your secular world. They're working towards, again, this better state of where we were from, and now here we are. We've rebuilt these walls, and we need to get people back in to the city. Think about it this way. Do we mark historical events by the date of the destruction of Jerusalem? Do we have like a time frame of, okay, so AD 70 is the destruction of Jerusalem. Do we have a time frame, or do we mark certain events after that from that date? I would say that we do, that there's going to be different time periods that come through. It's a major milestone in their lives when the city was destroyed. Well, now it's as we're looking here in Nehemiah, they've rebuilt the walls, and the city is coming back to its former glory, or a picture of it, somewhat of it. This is going to be a major milestone for their lives and the generations to come. So they're going to now kind of mark their time from, this is when we rebuilt Jerusalem. I guess the big one that would come to my mind is like 9/11 to us. We mark that day, and that's where we're going to that's a timestamp for us. Okay, here's what we're looking at past that. I think another one too, we weren't here when this building was built, but y'all use this as a timestamp, don't you? This building was built, I guess y'all are coming up on 8 years this year? 8 years. And that is a milestone, a major milestone for this congregation. And now we mark dates from that construction. What we're going to see here, though, is the intelligence of leadership and taking priorities of the problems. Nehemiah saw the major problem that needed to be dealt with. There needed to be some safety. They needed to have the walls built so that they could begin to remold what they've lost. The most important thing at the time was protection. In that protection, the temple could be built, worship could be established, and it would carry them through to the time of Christ. Chapter 11, verses 1 and 2, what we're going to look at here, let's read those verses. Chapter 11 of Nehemiah, verses 1 and 2. Now the leaders of the people dwelt at Jerusalem. The rest of the people cast lots to bring 1 out of 10 to dwell in Jerusalem, the holy city, and 9/10 were to dwell in the other cities. Verse number 2. And the people blessed all the men who willingly offered themselves to dwell at Jerusalem. If we're going to tithe, it needs to involve ourselves. We have to give of ourselves before we begin to give in any way that's going to be proper towards the Lord. It's hard to ask someone to give financially if they haven't first given themselves to the Lord, isn't it? It's hard to ask someone, hey, do you want to support this work that the church is doing? And if they haven't fully committed themselves to the Lord in the first place, they're going to go, maybe. I don't know. What's my lot in this? But they're casting lots here, and they're willing, and they're being blessed for those who have willingly offered themselves. to live in Jerusalem. Now God is taking different people from different places and He's bringing them back into the city. That's a whole other lesson in itself, right? We're looking at Ephesians right now. He took Jew and Gentile and He's making them one in Christ. But the holy city, they wanted its former glory to be restored. And what better way to do that than with those who are willingly offering themselves because they love the Lord? That's the people you want back in the city to ignite that fire again, if you want to use that phrase. There's also something to be said about being physically present within the city walls. They're physically there. It brings a different atmosphere, doesn't it? If we were to say, hey, we meet at this location, 2213 Two-Lane Drive, and then we're never here, if we don't meet as a body here on Sundays and Wednesdays, or the appointed times the elders have blessed us with here, what if someone pulled up in the parking lot and they said, well, this is their meeting times and no one's actually here? People are looking to Jerusalem now and they're saying, they're back in this city. They may actually be on to something here. Let's see what they have. But again, as we get to chapter 13, we're moving there very quickly. There is going to be a lot of things that have changed very quickly. There are going to be 3 divisions in chapter 11 and into chapter 12. The first one, we want to see that they're giving of themselves. Chapter 11, verses 1 through 12. Chapter 11, verse number 1 through chapter 12, verse number 26. They're giving of themselves. Chapter 11, verse number 1 through chapter 12, verse number 26. We're going to see the residents of Jerusalem there. We're going to see the men of valor, the overseers. We're going to see how small Israel was in the world scheme, verses 23 and 24. We see there, let's read those verses. For it was the king's command concerning them, a certain portion should be for the singer's quota day by day. Pethaniah, the son of chapter 12. Chapter 12, verse number 23 and 24. The sons of Levi, the heads of the fathers' houses, until the days of Johanan, the sons of Eliashib, were written in the book of the Chronicles. Verse number 24, and the heads of the Levites were Hashabiah, Sherebiah, the Jeshua, the son of Kadmiel, with their brothers across from them, to praise and give thanks, group alternating with group, according to the command of David and the man of God. Those are probably the wrong verses, because that's not where my head went. Okay, scratch that last point. But we're in chapter 12 now, and we're rolling along. We're going to see in verses 25 through 36 of chapter 12, there are going to be the residents of the villages there. Verses 17 and 18, we see the villages that are referenced. There's going to be the different valleys that are there. In chapter 12, verses 1 through 26, we see the names of the priests and the Levites. There's a registry there. And we're going to see the first high priest, the second high priest, Nehemiah. There's going to be a reference to Zerubbabel. This is going to be a very long process here. It's been 3 returns, but really there's only one restoration that's going on, isn't there? They're aiming towards the same goal here. 3 returns, 1 restoration. Number 2, so we've looked at your giving of yourselves. This was the list of all the people that are doing what that are giving of themselves. And then number 2, we're going to see that they're giving their praises. Chapter 12, verses 27 through 43. Chapter 12, verses 27 through 43. Throughout these verses, they're going to be singing is mentioned 8 times. Rejoicing is mentioned 7 times. And after they are purified, after they're dedicating the wall here in Nehemiah chapter 12, they're going to purify their sins, and then they're called to the wall. They're called back to what really brought them together in the first place. We're rebuilding the walls, and it's almost a reminder to them. Now, what's interesting to note here in Nehemiah chapter 4, I believe it's verse number 3. Nehemiah chapter 4. Verse number 3, yep. Okay, so if the people are being called back to the wall now, they're told, hey, gather here. Let's look at chapter 4, verse number 3, and look at what Tobiah the Ammonite said about them. about the wall, about them rebuilding. Now Tobiah, the Ammonite, was beside him, and he said, "Whatever they build, even if a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall." That fox wouldn't break down that stone wall now, would it? That was the outside influence telling them, "You'll never rebuild this wall. This wall's rebuilt now." And they have the ability to join together in praising the Lord at the wall that they built. They're in this together, side by side. But as we continue in those verses, the fox that Tobiah said that it would bring it down, look at what they're doing in chapter 12 as they continue there. They are walking on these walls. It's not that they had just fortified them. They were sturdy. They were ready to go. They were able to walk around and look at these different gates, the city below them, and out from among the city. And they're going to be able to see them standing strong. That was something that they accomplished together as a people of God. Verse number 36 of chapter 12, we see that Ezra is leading a group. Let's see, 36. Is that right? And his brethren. Yeah, Ezra is leading a group, and then Nehemiah is leading a group. These are within the same, they're both, Ezra's the high priest and the scribe. Nehemiah is the leader at this time. They were working very well together. We could probably make some application there with how we work together with our brethren, can't we? There was no competition between them. They weren't trying to say, well, okay, I did this and you did this, but you don't get to walk on the wall with me. There was unity within the walls, and now on top of the walls, if you want to look at it that way. But there was no competition within them. Our task as children of God, it is higher, is greater than ourselves, isn't it? It's not about us anymore, or it's not about me, excuse me. It's about us. What can we do together to serve the Lord better? Number 3, we're going to see them giving of gifts. Chapter 12, verses 44 through 47. They're going to give towards the temple responsibilities there. They're giving portions to take care of others for the Levites and for the singers and such. But they're giving of themselves, they're giving praise, and they're giving gifts. When we look at giving in general, it's not exactly the amount you put in the plate, is it? It's the heart that's giving it. It's what we're putting in and why we're putting it in. Any questions on chapters 11 or 12? I know we're moving very fast, and we're right at chapter 13 now. Okay. Y'all's mind probably hadn't caught up to my speaking. All right, chapter 13. Stone of confrontation. All right, they were doing really well. Very well. They had rebuilt the walls. They were on a good track. They're confirming, hey, look, we're going to do these things. We're participating. We're celebrating. We're worshiping our God together. And then chapter 13 comes, and we see that Nehemiah had departed. Now, back early in Nehemiah, we see that King Artaxerxes had asked when he'd come back, and now he has gone back to him. His first term of governor, if you will, lasted 12 years, Nehemiah's did. And he goes back to report to Artaxerxes in year number 13. So he's gone for about a year. And Nehemiah comes back, and him and the people are going to have confrontation. There's going to be some issues that are there. He left, and when he came back, the people had strayed. And if we're going with the wall theme, I might say that they destroyed themselves once more. They were fighting against themselves, and they were. It's very much like, let me double check this. I think it's chapter 7. Nope, not 7. Is it chapter 4? Oh, chapter 5. As they're dealing with oppression there, very much like that. But as we look back at chapter 10 on the promises that they made, look, Nehemiah comes back and says, we sealed these together. We're putting these away, and we sealed them, saying we're going to do these things. And Nehemiah returns, and they're not doing them. They're not doing most of that, verses 1 through 3. We see on that day, they read from the book of Moses in the in the hearing of the people. And it was found written that no Ammonite or Moabite should ever come to the assembly of God, because they had not met the children of Israel with bread and water when they hired Balaam against them to curse them. We remember that story? However, our God turned the curse into a blessing. So it was that when they heard the law, they separated themselves from mixed multitudes. So they look pretty good here in verses 1 through 3. But they're having to separate themselves from those relationships. They shouldn't have been in those relationships to begin with. They shouldn't have been in with the Ammonites and the Moabites there. They shouldn't have had to have separated. Now in verse number 4, we see there that Eliashib, the priest, having authority over the storerooms of the house of our God, he was allied with, there's a name we've seen before, Tobiah. Who's Tobiah, good or bad? Bad. Tobiah is bad. He's one of the one that wanted the walls to fail, for the people of Jerusalem to go away. And Eliashib, the priest, is giving him, he's preparing for him a large room in the storehouse of God, where they had previously stored, verse number 5, the grain offerings, the frankincense, the articles, the tithes of grain, the new wine and oil, which were commanded, they've already confirmed this, it's been commanded to be given to the Levites and the singers and the gatekeepers, and the offerings for the priest. Eliashib, the priest, you got a comment, Lynn?
As good an administrator as Nehemiah had proven himself to be during the rebuilding and handling all of the different problems, and then he was the governor for 12 years. 2 questions. Where was the breakdown that when he's gone for 1 year, they're so quick to fall away? And question 2 is, where's Ezra during all of this?
Good question. So the first one, I'm going to say it probably didn't break down in the 1 year he was gone. I'm going to say Eliashib never really separated himself from Tobiah. That's scout. The text doesn't read that. But I don't think you can build a relationship that fast and say, hey, you know what? They're already settled back in Jerusalem now. They have the walls built. They don't have to let Tobiah in, and yet Eliashib does. So I'm not sure that relationship only built over 1 year. I don't know where Ezra is right now.
I'm just saying that after 12 years as the governor, you would have think he would have known the weakness of that priest, would have identified that, and would have put safeguards in place so that when he's gone for a year, that Tobiah is not going to be able to take advantage of that relationship.
That's right. No, good point. And it's something we're going to kind of cover here. In verses 4 and 5, Tobiah was a great enemy of God's people there, and now Eliashib's giving him a great room of storage. You can take this room that was supposed to be for the priest and the singers and everyone else. We've seen Tobiah chapter 2, chapter 4, chapter 6. And when Nehemiah returned, he found Tobiah's stuff there, and he threw it all out. He was cleansing the house of God there. One second.
I guess it's possible that this priest never really was converted, if you would say.
It's possible.
You know.
Like Lynn makes a good point though. 12 years, I don't know. That's kind of hard not to see, but there are some people who are very good liars.
The word allied with him, many translations will translate that was related to him.
Yeah, and that's something too we're going to look at with the kin between Tobiah and him, and then also Sanballat as we get to that. But good point. It's probably that one of his daughters was married to I know his son is married to one of Sanballat's daughters, but it could be that he had a relationship there too with Tobiah and the kin aspect there. And we look back in verses 1 through 3, they were supposed to have separated themselves. They had got mixed up in those marriages. But this is going to Lynn's point here. You've got to be disheartened if you're Nehemiah, don't you? You come back after 1 year, 1 year, and he fought hard to get the walls built. He rebuilt the walls. He got the people back on track, or was doing his best as a team effort there with Ezra. And Nehemiah was gone a year, and then the enemy was let in. And not only let in, he was brought close. You can have a storeroom now. Verses 10 through 14, we're going to see that they stopped giving like they should have been giving. They stopped giving like they promised they were going to give. And then what we see here is the Levites had gone back to work so they could provide for themselves. Let's make another, this is kind of tying on to the thing I made earlier about the taking care of the preachers, right? And again, that's not here, but the church needs to do a better job across the board. When a congregation forces a man to go back into secular work and full-time ministry, not because they can't support him, but because they won't support him, that's an issue. And so the people here, they had the ability to support the priests. They had a storeroom from them. But Tobiah moves in, and they no longer have grain and stuff for them to get their portions there. So now they're back in the fields having to work in that aspect. But it's not because they can't. That's a different story. But if they can and they're refusing to, that's wrong. Verse number 11. Nehemiah, we've seen this before. He's going to contend with the rulers. He's going to say here, why is the house of God forsaken? He's arguing with them. He's struggling against the rulers here. Why did you do these things? I haven't even been gone that long. He went into the villages and he grabbed them and he came to get them to come back into the city. He's gathering them up. That sounds a lot like what he did when he first came in, doesn't it? He's getting the people back together to rebuild these walls. This application may be applicable to some but not others. In football, when you messed up bad enough, you either got a hand to the face mask that drug you like a bull with a nose ring to where you needed to be, or you got a sharp pull to the shoulder pads and said, here's where you're going. Nehemiah pretty much did that. He says, hey, you're not in the fields anymore. You're over here. You shouldn't be there. You need to go back to the house of God. He's dragging them along, and he's telling them where you belong. And when they all get back, verse number 12, they bring tithes. I don't know why we're so fickle as people. They get on track, they leave. They get on track, they leave. We do the same thing. We have to be careful of that. When he comes back, though, it seems to get back on track. Now, that shouldn't have to be the case. We shouldn't have to depend on one man. In fact, we should not depend on one man to help us fix all of our problems. There's a reason that the Lord has designed the church as it is. There's a reason there must be a plurality of elders. There's a reason that we have multiple deacons. There's a reason that we're to work together. If one man is gone, say they go on vacation for 2 weeks, that's how fast some things can change in a congregation. Is you come back and they've been waiting for you, they've been plotting to, how can we get rid of you? How can we work this out? Okay, he's not preaching this week. We can probably say what we need to say without him here. But Nehemiah, Lynn makes a good point. I don't know where Ezra is. I don't know why this is happening under Ezra's eyes right now. But verse number 14, he tells them, let's not go backwards again. In verses 15 through 22, we see that they were working on the Sabbath. They were doing things that were completely against the old law anyways, but things that they had already said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to do this anymore. Verse number 20, they were selling and they were buying. Nehemiah told those people that camped outside the city that weren't part of the Jews there. He says, look, you leave or we're going to have a fist fight. I'm going to lay hands on you. We're going to get after this and you're going to leave. And then they left. He stepped up once again and the people are following them. People need leaders. We need leaders. Not everyone is a leader. And not everyone's a follower. Make sure that we have the proper balance of chiefs and Indians, right? Don't get it mixed up. But we need leaders. People also, as we're following those leaders, we need to be charged. We need to be challenged to do things. We need to be challenged to do something. Verses 23 through 31, we're going to see more unscriptural marriages and offspring. God, in this time, He's wanting one language, and it's God's language. and I'm not talking of a like English or Greek now or Hebrew. He wants God's language. That's what he wants to be spoken. And the people were bringing in those who did not speak God's language, and so they were not a unified front. Now, what's interesting here, too, we can look at this in the parenting aspect of they had already said, yes, we're going to get away from these things, but now they're raising their children in these homes that shouldn't have been a home to begin with. They contradicted themselves. We see that Nehemiah did get physical. Verse number 25, he's pulling them by their hair. And he tells them in verse number 26, did not Solomon, the king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there was no king like him, who was beloved by God and his king, and God made him king over Israel. Nevertheless, pagan women caused even him to sin. Solomon, the greatest king that possibly ever lived in that time, appointed by God, foreign women is what made him fall away. He couldn't handle it. Nehemiah is then concerned with how God is going to remember him. Remember me, O my God, for good, verse number 30. Now there is nothing wrong with wanting God to recognize our work and to see the work of the wicked. God, here's what I'm doing against these things. And Doyle and I were having this conversation the other day is we have a lot of work to do. And that's our job, is we need to do the work, but we can only do so much. When it comes down to it, we say, okay, if I've done my part, God, please remember me for the good that I've done. And we can all say that. We need to be mindful of that. All right. I'm not going to make these comparisons. I have a list. If you want them, let me know, of comparisons between Nehemiah and Jesus, looking at them driving out the impurities from God's house, left the palace to serve people, and such like that. Let's make some application here. Tobiah and Sanballat coming back onto the scene in chapter 13 reminds me of the devil. It reminds me of the devil in Luke chapter 4, verse number 13. What did the devil do after Jesus told him to get behind me, Satan? What does the text read? The devil goes away and looks for a more what? A more opportune time. You think Tobiah and Sanballat were waiting for that opportune time to see that Nehemiah is gone away, the great leader, and they're waiting to pounce on the situation there and take hold of it? I do. Tobiah was an ally with Eliashib the priest, and that's bad, but it gets worse. Eliashib's son-in-law was the son-in-law of Sanballat. He married a foreigner, so they're bringing in these foreigners too close. This was all happening within the walls that were built for a purpose of bringing God's people back to God. Even those Nehemiah trusted within the walls, they were going against what he had brought them towards. They're going against they're going against God. As simple as that. Let's look at Acts chapter 20. Acts chapter 20, verse number 25 and following. This is Paul speaking to the Ephesian elders here. Okay. This is Paul speaking to the Ephesian elders here, verses 25 and following. And indeed, now I know that you all, among whom I have gone preaching the kingdom of God, will see my face no more. Therefore I testify to you this day that I am innocent of the blood of all men. For I have not shunned to declare to you the whole counsel of God. Verse number 28. Therefore take heed to yourselves and to all the flock among which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to shepherd the church of God, which he purchased with his own blood. Verse number 29. For I know this, that after my departure savage wolves will come among you, not sparing the flock. Also from among yourselves men will rise up, speaking perverse things, to draw away the disciples after themselves. Therefore watch and remember, for the 3 years I did not cease to warn everyone night and day with tears. Does that sound like what's going on with Nehemiah right now? Savage wolves are going to rise up even amongst your own people here, and you're going to be surprised. We need to be careful within our own congregation. There can be those who can arise and take away the things that we're moving towards. We're moving forward. We need to be mindful of that. Any questions or comments? That was a very brief chapter 10 through 13 of Nehemiah. Okay, we've got some comments over here. See, the good thing is y'all are adults, and I can keep you.
I think it might be good for us to think about the building of the temple You know, Ezra and Nehemiah were so related. Was the temple not built after this time?
I'd have to do my history lesson again.
I think it was a year later.
Yes, sir.
Well, Nehemiah, Ezra may have been so busy building the temple.
It could have been. It could have
And
been.
then I've always kind of been perplexed about the Moabite Ruth, you know.
Yes.
Was there a difference between one who was a Levite marrying a Moabite or an Ammonite than the other tribes?
Yes, sir.
It's kind of hard for me to reconcile that.
I understand that because she's in the bloodline of Christ, and so it's.
I just wondered if that could be the case.
It may be. I don't know. I have not done enough study on that for sure. Good questions or good comments though. Wes?
Can I tell you what my favorite chapters were?
Yes.
4
Quickly.
through 6.
Okay. Very good. I'll ask you why after class. Yes, sir.
One thing I like about Nehemiah and Esther as well is you don't see God saying, this is the answer. They've got to make choices. And sometimes they know what the right answer is.
Yep.
But like when there's one where somebody's telling him, come in the temple, they're trying to kill you. It says he perceived what they were trying to do. He chose not to take the governor's
That's right.
portions, though he had the right to do it. He didn't know what Elisha was doing until he got back. We today don't have God telling us, that's the answer right there. And so we see how he's responding. He gets angry at himself. He contends.
Yeah.
He gets very upset, but he takes action. And it kind of makes me go back to Esther, and where Esther was like, I don't know. And Mordecai said, who knows if you have
Right for
come
this
to a
time.
time for this
right.
time. We have to remember that. And ultimately, we have to take action, because if we keep hemming and hawing, nothing's going
nothing
to
gets
get
done.
done. And whether we're choosing the most effective answer or not, we're not going to do anything.
Yep. That's a good point. And with that, you know, if we make those mistakes and it's going to happen, we can learn from them. And then you keep moving forward. You have to reevaluate. Go ahead.
Just want to go on the record that I suggested to you that you take 2 classes instead of 1.
I know. Here's my solution to that. We have a baby that is due any day now, and so I wanted to finish and not have to take a break and then come back again. So be praying for that. We have another appointment tomorrow. You know, it's every week until she's born now. So be praying for a smooth delivery for that. Thankful for y'all's questions and comments and for the book of Nehemiah. I've really enjoyed it. Those questionnaires you had, if you haven't filled them out yet, just put them on the back table. Or excuse me, if you have filled them out, put them on the back table. I'd like to collect them so I can look at them and try to be a better teacher. And then if you haven't, just fill them out, and whenever you get a chance, give them back to me. Thank y'all.